Well, hello, good day again, and welcome back to the Mental Health Show. And as always, I'm your host, David Burrows. We've been having some great success with the Mental Health Show, so much so that we're coming into episode number 6 here today. Wherever you're watching from, we hope that you'll go back and review the series that's been brought to you so far. It's available in several different places, so wherever you're watching from, thanks for being here today. And don't be afraid to ask your questions or share your comments about the topics that we're discussing here today. Or maybe there's a topic that you would like to see discussed here on the Mental Health Show. Please let us know in the comments below. And as always, I'm really not the expert here. We just like to bring the experts here to you. And we've got 2 of them here today. Lee Govette, thanks for being here from Chatham-Kent Children's Services.
Good morning.
And Edna Cornwall-Shadd, who's here with Canadian Mental Health Association. Say that 5 times fast.
Hi there.
Hi. We're here today, ladies, to talk about anxiety. And there's a lot of definitions probably that are subcategories to that word, anxiety. Mm-hmm. So why don't we just start? Lee, let's start with you because you're kind of going to cover the children and youth side of anxiety.
Okay.
What is anxiety in that category?
Okay, so when we think about what anxiety is, we often think about the feelings of fear, nervousness, worry, apprehension. Anxiety is actually pretty adaptive or helpful if it motivates us. It can also be very protective if we're ever in a position of danger. It helps prepare us for taking action. When anxiety becomes a problem is actually when it starts to be occurring too often, goes on for a long time, or it's really starting to get in the way of a child or youth's day-to-day functioning.
Right. And why is this important to understand, especially I get at the child and youth level?
So most children and adolescents experience anxiety physically, meaning that they become aware of the symptoms inside of their body. And when I talk to kids or youth, we refer to that as body talk. So being aware of what your body is trying to communicate to you that's not working well. And so the more uncomfortable that these symptoms become for kids, the more that they start to believe that there's something seriously wrong with them, which then just increases their worry and their anxiety and makes them become more self-conscious. So trying to help separate the anxiety from the symptoms and helping kids and youth to become more aware of when their anxiety comes around, why it comes around, that it's very normal, it's not dangerous, it's not going to last forever. That self-awareness is actually their first step in being able to manage it effectively.
Right. Yeah. Let's, Edna, I want to come over to you for just a minute. You're a mental health care coordinator with CMHA. And this all kind of leads into the adult side of things with anxiety. But I guess that's why it's another reason to understand this at early stages coming into it. We all have anxiety, right?
That's correct. It's normal, like Lee had said, and it serves as a protection for us. Like as a woman walking down a dark alleyway at night, I want to be able to respond to the body sensations that will be letting me know that there might be possible danger so that I know whether I want to run, fight, or freeze, right? So it's natural and normal. I'm not going to lie, David, I'm sitting here doing this interview with you and I'm pretty nervous, right? So you're
doing great so far.
Well, thank you. Thank you. The importance, as Lee was pointing out, is because we want to have the youth and the children be able to recognize these sensations that are going on in their body so that they can start working on it so it doesn't become this maladaptive behavior that carries on into their adulthood. Yeah. So if we can get them to recognize some of the early symptoms of what's occurring within their body and then using coping strategies to work effectively with it, then that's going to be the most helpful.
And I guess that recognizing it is a big important factor here because so let's pick an age. I'm 9 years old and I'm having these feelings. And am I normal? What am I telling myself at 8, 9 years old? And what's that feeling I get in my chest, or the thoughts I'm having? And am I going to get picked on if I speak up about this? Lee, what's the process in teaching a young child or youth how to handle that?
So if we're talking about treatment, treatment looks like what we would use would be a cognitive behavioral therapy. And what that is it's an evidence-based treatment approach that really looks at having kids evaluate their thinking, their feelings, and their behaviors. It is more of a talk therapy. It deals with the physical aspects of the anxiety. So being able to provide them with relaxation strategies such as deep breathing, mindfulness activities, grounding activities. It starts to look at some of the thinking and having kids be aware of their thinking, evaluate their thinking, rethink their thinking in more positive, realistic ways. And in terms of some of the behavioral stuff, what we look at is what we call gradual desensitization or exposure response, which are kind of big terms. But what that really means is it just offers kids a safe opportunity to approach situations where they normally are anxious, and they have a support person and are able to use those tools to be able to get through those situations.
Right. Now, what about school? Because when I'm in school, I can have these feelings. Well, I guess it looks a little different. The playground looks a little different right now, but typically, I'm out on the playground, or I'm even in classroom. I'm having an anxiety over that test, right?
Yeah.
What's the relationship between your services and, say, the schools as well?
So we do work collaboratively with school personnel, and what we try and do is, if there is a child that's recognized with high anxiety, and that tends to be interfering either with their social, emotional well-being, or even their academic ability, what we try and do is come up with a plan, look at what types of coping strategies that they may be using in a counseling session, and transferring some of those skills over to the school setting, so that there's some consistency and predictability for the child, as well as providing support people in all aspects of that child's life.
Okay. It's really something that anxiety never really goes away, I guess, right? It's more of how we deal with it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think if we look at treatment, we never look at treatment as elimination. We look at it as really just decreasing the intensity and the duration, because anxiety is normal. It can be very functional. And so we don't want to eliminate it. We just want to give kids and teens tools to be able to cope effectively with it and feel okay about themselves.
Yeah. And if not handled, can this have a physical effect on young people as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so it's interesting, because I often get asked from parents, is this just in my child's head, or are these symptoms real? Especially if they've, sought out medical attention, where they've gone to their family physician, or they've gone to a pediatrician, and there's no medical evidence that says there's anything physically wrong with them. What happens is that with the fight-flight response that Edna had talked about earlier, it's the body's automatic response to protect us from danger. So our thoughts start to focus on the danger, and then our bodies start to rev up and prepare us to respond appropriately. So what happens is our brain then signals to, I guess, our neurotransmitters, if you want to get biological, neurological about it. And so a huge release of chemicals and hormones, such as adrenaline, are released into the body. And so what happens with that is those are all the symptoms that kids or youth feel inside. And so when they report to us that, I don't know how I feel. I don't know why I have tummy aches. I don't know why I'm tight or tense or sweating. They truly don't, and they don't have control over that because it's a neurological response.
Right. As a parent too, I think you probably have to deal with the anxiety in parents maybe while you're dealing with the children or youth in this. Is my child or youth, are they going to be okay? Are we going to get through this? Because I think we as parents, we don't always like to ask for help. We like to know that we're handling things. And if we have to reach out, there's a part of us that feels a little bit of failure, maybe, is that something that you have to deal with as well in the parent?
All the time.
Yeah.
And part of that, right, is as parents, I think that, we feel our job is to be protective, and I often say to the parents that I work with, you are your child's expert. You know them the best, right?
Right.
So, that's a way of easing some of that responsibility. But for some parents, being that expert, they should know what to look for. They should know how to be able to handle their anxious child. And that's not always the case. And seeking outside help isn't always clear or easy if they're not really understanding what their child's experiencing.
Yeah. So I would imagine there's counseling. I say that word counseling generally, I guess, for the children, but the parents are involved in that as well, right?
Absolutely, especially when we're dealing with anxiety. Because what happens is kids will often seek out parents or other adults for reassurance. So they need to know they're safe. They need to know they're okay, because their little brains trick them into believing something terrible is going to happen to them or people that they're close to, and it's going to be the absolute worst thing that could ever happen. And so they do constant check-ins with their people that they're close to make sure that they're safe. They're going to be okay. They're going to get through this. So part of what we suggest to parents is trying to really minimize or limit that amount of reassurance, because that continues to feed some of the anxious thoughts, feelings, and the behaviors. And so encouraging parents really to use some of the tools, some of the self-calming strategies, some of the self-talk, even just reflecting back on previous experiences where they've faced a big challenge and they came out on the other side okay, so that they have that awareness of, oh, okay, I've done this before and this is going to be okay.
Yeah. And what about meditation? Is that something that I know that was something that I've mentioned before, that I was able to use St. Clair Child and Youth Services years ago when I was a teenager, and meditation was something that I'm so grateful even to this day to have. Is that still something that is practiced and shared?
Yeah, absolutely. So that would be part of the treatment modality that we do with kids. And I think previously with just having other counselors involved, talking about the mindfulness, the grounding, having them stay in the moment, because kids are fantastic about looking to the future. And that's okay if it's going to be helpful in planning or problem solving or reaching their goals. But when the future becomes unpredictable and that unpredictability becomes a problem or a worry, those worries start to build and they start to increase, which then brings us to being anxious about what's coming.
And it sounds to me like it's not just one individual, like it's not just the child or youth who's going to a counselor. Even if they only see that one person, it sounds like there's a team working together to help. There's more than one person involved.
Right. Well, and I mean, anxiety, it's not just isolated to one area. So, I mean, it can be environmental, it can be situation, there could be a genetic component to it. So, having support people in all aspects of that child or that youth's life to be able to support them and keep that consistency and routines, increase predictability and decrease some of that anxiety. So it's really important that we have supports for these kids in all different aspects of their life.
Right. Very good. Lee, I'm going to come back to you in a little bit, but that's a great lead into Edna. We want to include you in this conversation too.
Lee's done an excellent job.
But we do grow and we become adults. And I'm guessing that I would imagine the two of you probably cross paths often here in working, having to work together.
Yes, CMHA has a history with the Chatham-Kent Children's Services, and we also now have, through our agency, Access Open Minds, and so that deals with the youth population as well in providing supports to them. So, yeah. Yeah.
So in coming... becoming an adult, and I guess that where does that really start? Is there an age limit on that, or is it 17? Is it 18? Is it 15?
Yeah, well, nowadays, yeah, it's kind of challenging. We typically say 18, but we have dealt with individuals 14, 16. It just depends on what's going on and what additional resources that you might need that Chatham-Kent Children's Services might be reaching out to us for. But yeah, it's usually 18 and up. Okay.
And let's talk about COVID-19. I don't know if you've heard about that thing.
Yeah.
That's got to really add to anxiety and a whole different... You just got a whole new category to deal with anxiety now, I would think, right? Edna, on your side of things, what are you seeing there with anxiety?
So absolutely. Those who already have an issue with anxiety are needing that extra reassurance that Lee was referring to. So there's been an increase of calls to the agency. But what we're also recognizing is individuals who don't necessarily have a mental health issue because of the pandemic are experiencing some anxiety. And I'm not going to lie, for myself, there has been some anxious producing moments for me because of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how do you know, like, if I have anxiety as just something that I'm needing to learn to deal with, or if I have an anxiety disorder? Am I saying that right? Is that a thing? Or like, where's the fine line in that?
And that's a good question, because it is really a fine line, because like we've been saying, anxiety is natural and normal. We all need to have some of it to survive, right? If we're not having any anxiety producing moments, then that's really interesting. I'd love to meet that person.
Right.
So if you're experiencing anxiety, like right now, I had said to you that I'm having some anxiety over doing this interview. Well, it's because it's a new situation for me. I haven't been exposed to it before, and I'm meeting two brand new people that I haven't met before. So having some anxiety around that is natural and normal. And so when this interview is over, this feeling of anxiety that I'm experiencing right now, like my palms are sweaty, I'm breathing a little bit faster. When this interview is over, those symptoms are going to be gone, because I've handled the situation. It's done and over with. However, if I continue to have these symptoms after the situation is over, and I can't identify why am I feeling this way, but I'm still going through those bodily sensations, then I would want to maybe consider whether I need to see someone, right? If I'm getting to the point where I'm seeing danger at every corner, I'm always living with that worst case scenario, and my brain just can't seem to distinguish, between this is a dangerous situation and this isn't a dangerous situation. I'm seeing everything as danger.
Okay.
Then that is a problem. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And even as is it tougher? I'll let you both attack this question here. Is it tougher as an adult to recognize that I have an anxiety issue, or is it tougher as a child or youth to recognize it? Because you really have to recognize it first. Nobody's helping me yet. I have to recognize it.
I think it's tough across the board.
Right.
I don't think it really matters what age you are, because first you have to I don't like this word, but this is what the child and the adult will be saying to themselves, what's wrong with me,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
No one wants to look at themselves in that way and say, what's wrong with me? So we don't tend to use that language when we're working with individuals who have anxiety issues. What is it about the situation that's causing you to feel this way?
Yeah.
And then explore it from that angle.
That's a really interesting way that you say that word. Words are really, we speak the English language, but there's really a language in how we use our language, I guess, right? And, I think back to, I remember, and probably many people watching would remember, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me.
That's not true.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Yeah.
And I think, and it's just an opinion, I guess, here, but one of the we worry sometimes about what other people think about us. And what about that one that I thought I really like that person, but they don't like me? So again, what's wrong with me? What did I do? So is there some training, I guess, thought training that goes on, and is what I'm hearing here as well, right, ladies?
Did you want to go, Lee?
No, I was going to say absolutely. I mean, if when we talk about anxiety, yes, there's the symptomatic side of it, but it starts with the thinking. It starts with what we tell ourselves to be true about ourselves, about the situation around us. So that can spiral out of control very quickly. And I mean, to give you an example of, a child who is having to present in front of the class, and they're predicting how that's going to go. And if they're telling themselves that this isn't going to work in my favor, that this is going to be a very negative situation, what that might look like is preparing for that presentation. What if I get up in front of my peers and I forget what to say? What if I freeze? What if the class starts to laugh at me? What if I break down and cry? What if I'm then called a crybaby? What if my friends no longer want to hang out with me because everyone sees me as a crybaby? What if I have no friends left and I'm alone at recess or I'm alone at break? So you can see how just, the information that child or youth has given themselves predicting that situation has spiraled into, now I have no friends. And it started with a presentation in front of the class.
Right.
And so you can see why, a lot of kids, youth, even adults will avoid anxiety-provoking situations. They want that escape because it's too frightening, too stressful, too many unpredictable feelings or outcomes.
Yeah.
So it becomes really important to then help them to develop a ways of changing those what if scenarios that they've created, because it does become this runaway train that's going to plow them over.
Yeah.
And they just keep going and going. And so the problem, the initial problem of standing up there and giving the speech in front of their classmates is now viewed as everything going on in their life, right? They have just magnified this problem into something else. So really helping them to, okay, let's step back and take a look at these thoughts that are circling around your head and try and see if we can replace them with more truthful, positive thoughts. So it's, encouraging them to challenge what they're thinking. Is there any proof to what you're saying? And maybe there might be. And so, okay, so let's take a look at that and see what we can do. But usually what they find out is, yeah, there really is no proof to what I'm thinking. Okay, so then what can we do about that? How can we reframe that thought that you're having so that you can face this situation and feel successful? Because that's where it's really important in helping them to feel that they have some control over the anxiety, empowered, so that if they find themselves becoming anxious again, they can recall, hey, I made it through this. I can do this. So I'm going to plan for these anxious moments and use these tools that I have to help myself get through it.
Kind of a reference point then to say, remember that time when I was all worried about that and really I guess as parents too, we try to tell our children things like, "Don't worry about it," or "It'll be fine. You'll do great." But of course, we would expect mom and dad to say that. And children and youth they're not stupid. They would expect mom and dad to say that probably. But yeah, mom and dad, you don't understand. And then as I'm heading to the school, I'm on the bus or walking, however I'm getting there, all I'm thinking about probably all week was this presentation that I probably got an A+ on, for example. And boy, I was worried. Was I worried for nothing, or was I worried for a reason?
Right.
And that's it. Now, we'll go back to you, Lee, in that situation of the presentation. As a teacher in the classroom, that teacher probably has to learn how to recognize, try being a teacher. I can't imagine knowing all these terms and things to recognize. And I've got how many different personalities in the room. Do you work? I know you sort of said earlier that you deal with the educational system, but how close directly do you have to work with the teachers? I would think they're a big impact.
Right. So I guess depending on the child, because every child or every youth symptoms are very different. The intensity is different. Their personal experiences with anxiety are different. So I've had fantastic experience with teachers who recognize that, okay, it is helpful to encourage and push kids to face their fears. However, in situations where, the anxiety is just too high and we're going to push kids to start avoiding school, teachers, are able to be very flexible. And I've had experiences where they've just done one-on-one with the teachers and being able to present it on a one-on-one basis, being able to not present it. So it really is, taking each child into consideration and what their needs are and how to support them the best. And, every child could be at a different stage of managing their anxiety. And there may be some kids who are willing to stand up with the support, of a teacher and try the presentation. And there may be some kids, if it's going to be a matter of getting them to school or, presenting,
Right.
we kind of weigh the outcomes, and it's obviously much more important that child's in school. So we work around what is that child's needs that are going to keep the anxiety at a minimum.
Okay.
And help them feel successful. Right.
Sorry?
And help them to feel successful.
Yes. Right. Well, success is a better feeling than the other, right? That's more of a positive. I'm curious, there's a lot of online resources that we're going to be sharing here as well, which I've always thought the internet used properly is a great resource. But what about the medical side in all of this? And when I say that, I'm talking medicine. Is that something that is common to use to deal with anxiety as well? Edna, let me come back to you, and maybe you can start with that.
Absolutely. There are some good medications out there that can help you deal with anxiety. Research has shown that combined with cognitive behavioral therapy has the greater success, right? Because no one wants to have to be on medication for life. So if they can figure out the steps that they need to help them resolve the problem and be successful with coping, right? Recognizing that there are some things that they can do to help control the anxiety. They will never get rid of it 100%, but lessening the severity and the intensity of it is really the goals that we work towards with them. So if they can get the help from the medication and from having some talk therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, along with using some basic self-care skills. Like it's important to make sure that you're getting enough sleep and that you're eating properly and that you're exercising and that you're finding time to find pleasure and joy in things that you are doing. So all of that in combination with the meds and having some professional supports are very important in allowing the person to feel that they can control the anxiety.
Okay. Lee, is that almost duplicate for you as to what Edna's saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Our approach is the combination of therapy and medication is absolutely the best way for kids to be able to manage anxiety. We really try and help families to understand that the medication isn't eliminating the anxiety. It's like Edna said, it really is just kind of taking the edge off those symptoms. It's helping it not be as intense when it happens. They're still going to experience anxiety-provoking situations, but it allows them to think a little bit clearer in those situations where they can start to use some of the skills that they've learned, be able to remove themselves, be able to do some of the grounding and the mindfulness and the relaxation.
Okay. Now, Edna, you mentioned exercise, doing that sort of thing. I've heard this, but I've never really asked the professionals. Is exercise a great coping mechanism to deal with anxiety? And as we say the word mental health, a lot of subcategories there. Exercise, highly recommended?
Yeah, it is. The amazing thing about the brain, and don't get me wrong, I'm a social worker, so I don't know all of the medical terms to use, but it releases the feel-good drug in our brain. And so that can really help to alleviate some of the situations that we're facing and give us the sense of, again, control, that we can handle this, we can do this, we can be successful. So trying to be active is important. And the second benefit is it's a distraction. So if you can't do anything else because you're feeling so anxious, if you're engaging in that physical exercise, you're distracting yourself. So you're giving your brain and your body time to adjust and get itself back into rhythm and not have all of those bodily sensations and thoughts rushing through your head and flooding your system.
Right. Now, to be clear, this is not the exercise show. So when we say exercise, we're not telling everybody to go out and join a gym or anything like that.
No.
It can be as simple as just going for a calm walk, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And with that, this is where when Lee was talking about mindfulness and all that stuff, you can combine those activities on the walk, right? So you're taking that time to appreciate the trees, the sound of the birds, and all of this, again, has this calming effect on you. So you may not even realize that you're using coping strategies.
Right.
Right.
Reduce the anxiety. Yeah.
So when my wife says to me, David, come on, we're going for a walk. And then I go, and then all I do is talk. And then we get home. She probably was recognizing that I needed to go for a walk. Right. Like, and that, and no, seriously, like, and that's a type of therapy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. When we talk about adults, and let's talk about that in relationships, marriage, even just girlfriend, boyfriend, learning to recognize anxiety in your partner, I would say, would be something that would be important in relationship. Would you agree with that?
I would. And sometimes I would say to you that the partner may be the first one to recognize the subtle changes that are occurring with you, which are demonstrating to them that you're having an increase in anxiety before the person who is anxious does. So it's really important to have this open, communicative relationships so that you can speak to that person about what's going on, and then they can recognize what the symptoms are that you're experiencing, and then encourage you. Like you were saying for your wife, go for the walk, encouraging you to use some of those coping methods to help yourself.
Yeah. What about on the youth side or child side, Lee? We have friends when we're kids. I mean, it's a little bit different for an 8-year-old to recognize that an 8-year-old's having an anxiety issue, or is it?
Well, I guess if you were to look at, are they withdrawing, not wanting to hang out as much? Are they starting to maybe be a little bit more avoidant of trying new things? Sometimes kids can be pretty impulsive and risk takers, and are they now starting to pull back a little bit? Are there, times where they're very emotional, or they're very, easily frustrated? Is it impacting the social relationship? So they're for an 8-year-old to recognize that in a friend, those may be some of the things that they might see.
Right. And what's it like for a child or a youth to live with anxiety?
I would think pretty stressful and frightening.
Yeah,
Absolutely, right? We've talked at length about that loss of feeling of control and not knowing what's happening internally in their bodies. And the worries, the brain starts to trick them into believing that the absolute worst thing is going to happen, that there's doom, and that's a real fear for them. And so we see kids responding in a change of emotion. So they're angry. They're refusing to try new things. They might be avoidant. We even see kids where they start to develop repetitive behaviors, such as, repetitive hand washing, checking, ordering, just to get some sense of control back into their lives and to ease some of those anxious feelings. And, the reassurance, checking in with adults and checking in with people around them. Am I okay? Is this real? What if? And so some of those behaviors continue to feed the anxiety and to continue allowing it to grow.
Right. And there's always the adapting that goes along with, I guess, on your side of things, on the 4 basic personalities, but we know there's a whole bunch more. And what about when there's other stuff besides the anxiety going on? Like there's a combination of, again, I'm not the expert, but I imagine there's more than one thing going on there if a person's got anxiety.
Yeah, that's typically what we see. Yeah, that there's more than one issue that the person's contending with. Lee was talking about obsessive compulsive disorder, which falls under the anxiety category. So, I mean, there's so many labels that fall under anxiety itself. And then you have other symptoms, because what we see in a lot of our adults who have anxiety and disorder issues, they also have depression, right? Because now part of their way of coping with the anxiety symptoms was by isolating and withdrawing from others. And so if they had been employed, they may have ended up losing their job because the anxiety no longer allowed them to go to work. And so then they end up with depressive symptoms. So now you've got anxiety, you've got depression, you have loss of income. It just starts to be a roller coaster. So that's why we really, really recommend people to look for help. I know that sometimes it's a challenge to get yourself to that point, but it's important because there is help available for you out there. And please call. And CMHA specifically is, for the adults, and we have the mental health first response team that you can have as your initial contact, and they will provide you with support. They'll direct you to the most appropriate resource that's available for you. There's help. Yeah, no one needs to suffer in silence.
Yeah, it's a great way to put that. And we want to remind everybody who's watching this, these services are free.
Yes.
They're available to you free. And we want to get that barrier right out of the way, because in the past episodes we've talked about, that's probably one of the first things, aside from recognizing that I need some assistance. Yeah, but what about the money? Everybody's in a really different situation, and the numbers are there, all the links that we're sharing, free resources, and who wouldn't want to talk to these ladies? I mean, come on, you're reassuring and everything you're saying here. And well, truthfully though, that kind of leads me into the next part here. Is it really you are comforting, and you are, and you need to be, I would imagine, very patient and understanding in what you do, and then look after yourself in all of this. I mean, I've always wondered in the sense that I'm not looking to get into that field, but you've got a lot coming at you, a lot of information, a lot of different people talking to you, and probably expecting you to have rely on you, right? How do you handle your anxiety or whatever else you have to deal with? Lee, can I come back to you for that?
Sure. I have fantastic colleagues. I have great supervisors. The people that I work with are extremely supportive. I have a great circle of family, friends, supports outside of my work. And really, it is about self-care. It's about being able to manage your own experiences, being able to not ruminate on things, let it go, engage in life, and draw some lines in the sand around, this is my job, and I can't carry it on into my personal life. There has to be some boundaries there.
You make it sound really easy, Lee, but I'm not sure. I wouldn't be the guy. I'll tell you that. Edna, you probably have to do the same when you're leaving the building, or or you're leaving work for the day. You have to stay right there. I'll come back and pick you up tomorrow, right?
Absolutely. The self-care tips that I talk to my consumers about are no different than the ones that I use for myself. I mean, I'm human too. So we know that these things work, and so I use them. But there are times when it is a challenge, when you've had a difficult situation occur, where I have to remind myself, you cannot take this home with you. Otherwise, you're not going to make it to come back in for the next day. So plant it at the office door and walk out. And then when I come back in, okay, I'll pick it up and carry it into my office space with me, and try to see what I can do about it then. But yeah, it's important to make that distinction between my work life and my home life. And right now with the pandemic, I'm sure we've seen some crossovers with people having to work from home, being able to shut it off at 5 o'clock when you're in the exact same environment that you've been in for the whole day. So I'm sure that some people are having some challenges with that, but it's really, really vital.
Well, I guess, you've heard the saying, like, surround yourself with the right people at the same time. I guess, we're all living in different situations. And the surroundings, interesting you mentioned that, you sit in the same room all the time now because of this virtual world. Hopefully you can have a separate room, but not everybody has that. Some are working at the kitchen table, and they've got the kids that, we're learning online as well. And you got 4 computers going in the house, and the internet's not working, and you're kind of parenting and working at the same time. And let's see, what else can we add into all of this? No wonder there's some anxiety and stress going out there. I know in the beginning of all of this, I talked to some other folks in the mental health field, and they were like concerned because they weren't seeing an increase of services being needed right away, and that was concerning. Did you witness the same thing in all of this as well, Lee?
Absolutely. And I think in just being able to reconnect with some of our families, part of what we were seeing is the anxiety was actually decreasing, because when we talked about the environmental or situational factors, a lot of children experience that high stress because of some of the academic, whether it's social, emotional, or their academic needs are challenging for them. And so they're home, where for most kids is their safe place. And so we immediately see some of that anxiety decrease. And parents are feeling like, okay, we're back to calm, we're back to normal, we're back to kind of what summer vacation looks like, where we get a break from the anxiety. We think about what kids are exposed to, in the academic setting around, some of the bullying that happens, or, their intellectual needs when they struggle with that, and how stressful that can be. So all of that was eliminated, and kids were able to just be kids. And so we weren't getting the referrals. I will say, though, referrals are starting to ramp up a little bit now that I think people are comfortable at home. And so frustrations are starting to build, and stress is starting to build. And I think just, again, with the pandemic and not knowing what the school year is going to look like for not just the kids, but the parents, is starting to ramp up some of that unpredictability and the stress again. So we are seeing referrals starting to come back in, and I think come September we'll be back on track with.
Yeah. Edna, are you saying the same, Edna?
Yeah, with the initial beginning of the pandemic and the fear of going anywhere and doing anything, it certainly did reduce the number of referrals that we were getting, but that has definitely changed. The longer the pandemic is still going on. We're still in the throes of it. It's been 4 months. I don't think anyone initially, when we first, we're going to shut down and everybody's going to stay home and we're going to bend that curve, I don't think that anyone expected it to last as long as it has.
Far from over.
Still no end in sight. Exactly. With still no end in sight. So that in itself is anxiety producing. And what I'm recognizing with a few individuals that I'm involved with, just from what Lee had said, is the anxiety around, what am I going to do about my children come September? I don't know if I feel safe sending them back to school, but if I don't send them back to school, I can't keep working from home. I have to return to my workplace. And so all of these things are just really causing that increased stress and anxiety for individuals. And some of it may be situational and may resolve itself when this pandemic resolves itself. Or it may be the trigger that sets off other mental health issues for individuals. So, yeah, it's interesting times that we find ourselves in. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, like there wasn't already all of this that we're talking about before the pandemic, and then I call it someday. I'll do that someday, or this will happen someday. Well, someday showed up. And money is always in there somewhere. That anxiety of am I going to pay my rent on time, or to food? To everybody's got their different situations to think about the money. And even though the government's been helping, they only got so much money too, right? So all this how we do business has changed, and what am I going to do? And oh my goodness, right? So yeah, a long list of oh my goodness is happening out there that are just adding to all the anxiety right now. Let's talk about some of the. I'll start again with you, Edna, about some of the online resources. You see Lambton Kent, cmha.ca, but Bounce Back Ontario and Big White Wall. Let's start with Bounce Back Ontario. What would people expect to see there?
So that one, they would be able to get some modules and do some things independently on their own, or get some counseling supports from that. And it's a referral process from a doctor. So if you want to get the therapy part of it, if you just want to go on and do some of the module things on your own, you can do that.
Okay. And then bigwhitewall.ca. That's something fairly new, isn't it?
That's been around for probably the same length of time as Bounce Back, or at least in my head, it's been around the same amount of time.
I could be wrong.
and I could be wrong. It's happened, Dave, that I've been wrong. But this one is totally, you don't need a referral or anything. There's a chat component to it, so it can help you to form some relationships with the individuals. There's some educational material on there. Another one that I like to recommend to folks, because again, you can go on there and there's modules and stuff and chat spaces, is Anxiety Canada. There's a lot of really good information on there as well.
Right. And Lee, let's come back to you and just talk a little bit more about, I think there's some new things happening on Chatham-Kent Children's Services website.
Yes, so we are actually starting our mindful moments virtually. So that's pretty exciting, where we used to do it in studio, and now we've taken it online. So giving kids, right now it's the 12 to 17 age range. Okay. Again, no cost for it. Kids just have to register by calling our agency. And so Mindful Moments is a program that was developed that incorporates the yoga, the meditation, the mindfulness, relaxation, fun activities for kids, socialization, problem solving, and incorporates everything for kids to be able to manage anything that they're going through, feeling good about themselves, meeting new people. And so we've moved that now to the virtual means. So we're hoping that more kids and youth have access to it, which is pretty awesome. We also have our website has kind of gone virtual as well. So any type of information that we can provide parents, our social media is up and going, daily tidbits of information or support, it should be there. The podcast is going to be posted. So it really just as many ways as we can to kind of reach the families virtually and let them know that we're still here.
Very good. Well, great to have these resources. And of course, now the Mental Health Show, another resource in sharing this information. And again, those of you watching, these are all available from all previous episodes will be available in many locations as well. We'll be posting all of these links in the comments sections of those different areas as well. Something that we're getting close to wrapping up, but I haven't heard the word pet. And I don't have any pets here. My wife has a bunch of fish, but is that really therapy? Or dogs and cats and that helps with anxiety?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean that actually, what kids will tell us is it's not only the sensation of being able to kind of have the feeling of petting the animal, but the nurturance, being able to take care of that animal, being able to just even provide feedback and not have anything talking back or giving suggestions or direction or telling them they're right or wrong.
Unconditional love, 100%.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's always interesting as well to see how the pet picks up on, again, the early symptoms that the person themselves may not recognize, right? And the pet picks up and provides that comfort that the person needs. But one of the comments that I would make when I had a dog, my dog, I had to put him down, was the fact that I could say anything to my dog about what was going on, how crappy the day was, and he would just give me nothing back but love. So sometimes that's what the youth and the adult need. Don't necessarily need to hear somebody telling them, okay, so how might you reframe that thought? Well, remember, it's just a thought. It's not a fact, right? Sometimes that becomes a little bit too much. And so they might just need that conversation with the pet that's not going to talk back to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess probably for the child or the youth, some responsibility in looking after. Give me some responsibility. I'm okay with that. Sometimes they are, but their own a choice of responsibility, and just like you say, that comfort that's there, and no talk back. Just listen to me. You have to listen to me. Well, this has been very informative, as of all our episodes, but this is a unique conversation on its own. Anxiety. What is anxiety? How to deal with it? How to recognize it? Boy, lots of information there. Thank you both so much for what you are doing in our communities and for being here today. Before we go, Lee, I'll start with you. Any final thoughts?
Just to let everyone know that we are very accessible. We have our walk-in service now that we're offering on a daily virtual means or through telephone contact. I am doing brief services, which is 3 sessions over a period of 6 weeks. So there's not a wait list for that. I'm able to kind of be accessible fairly quickly. We have our crisis services. So right now, just being able to make a referral through our number, and lots of services available.
Okay, very good. Edna, final thoughts for you?
Yeah, we've never had our door closed because of the pandemic. We've always been open and available. So please, if you need the support, reach out to us. If you need to walk into the CMHA office there, please do. We have the pager service that you can call for the mental health first response team. We offer case management supports if you think you need that. We'll offer vocational supports for those that are, employed and having issues with keeping their job because of their anxiety. We have a vocational specialist who might be able to provide you with some needed assistance so that you don't end up losing your job, because that's really important too, how that financial stuff can spin out of control and make the symptoms of anxiety, depression even worse. So lots of different programs that we have available. I'm involved as a group facilitator in doing an anxiety and depression groups. We're actually starting that next month, and it will be virtual. So all kinds of opportunities that are available to you. Please don't hesitate to reach out for support. We're there and we want to help.
Yeah, for sure. Great reinforcements here today. Lee and Edna, thank you again for your efforts and your time here today.
Thank you.
Great information. And for all of you who are watching, we hope you enjoyed this program. We're going to be doing more. We'll be back again next week. If there's a topic that maybe we haven't covered yet you'd like to see us talk about, in the comments, let us know, and we'll do our best to attack those conversations for you. It's been my pleasure in doing this series so far. I've learned lots of great information, and looking forward to the next time we can share with you here on the Mental Health Show. I'm your host, David Burrows. Until next time, take care of yourself. Bye for now.